Today, we're going to talk about how to get a guitar DI track to sound just like an amp track. I have a session that only has one recorded guitar, and they also included the DI. And typically, when you mix guitars, it's nice to have a good balance on both the left and right side. So, what I'm going to try to attempt to do today, and I'll show you exactly how I do it, is to take the amp guitar, put it on one side, and then recreate the same sound and tone using IK Multimedia Amplitube 5 on the left side to try to make them match. That way, when the mix is being played back, it sounds a lot bigger. And if you're struggling to get good guitar tones using DI tracks, I have something I think you're really going to like. I've made an impulse response of my orange 212 cabinet, has vintage 30s in it. This thing sounds awesome, and I'm going to give it to you totally free. So go download that. There's a link to that impulse response in the description. It's got a nice mid-forward character to it that sounds amazing in rock music. If you're not sure who I am, my name is Bobby Balo, and I'm the mixing and mastering engineer at Raytown Productions. And this channel is dedicated to helping you make better sounding music without needing to buy any expensive plugins or gear. If you're new here, be sure to hit that subscribe button because I drop new videos every single week that's going to help you level up the quality of your music. And with that, let's dive into the session today, and I'm going to show you how simple it is to match a guitar tone and get it sounding awesome. So the session we're working on today is by a band called Street Urchinz. This song is called Only One, and it's on their upcoming album. These guys work super hard. They're awesome dudes. Definitely go and support them if you like what you hear. This session was a little bit challenging because normally when you receive guitars for a song, you'll have two tracks. You'll have the left channel and right channel for like most rock music. But this is a reggae song, so we have clean guitar that was amped and mic'd, and then I also received a DI track. So for me to simulate having two recorded amps, I need to recreate the guitar tone that we had initially. So let me play for you. Actually, I'll just play you a song a little bit so you can get a sense for what it sounds like.
I feel so alone, like I've been stuck in this rut for so long. And I'm afraid to make a change from this life that I'm used to. But I know without a goal.
All right, so you get an idea, right? We have this really cool, chimey guitar tone. Let me just solo it here. And then I have a DI track. Sounds a lot different, right? So how do I transform that DI track to sound like this mic'd guitar tone? And the answer to that is to have a little bit of knowledge about what the actual amp was that was used in the recording. So I'm a guitar player, and to me, this sounds like maybe like a Fender or something, and it has a really cool spring reverb sound on it. So that just gives us a starting point. To recreate the sound of a guitar amp in an actual physical space, you want to use some sort of guitar modeling software. And one particular software that I think sounds pretty good, especially for clean tones, is by IK Multimedia, and it's their Amplitube 5 software. Let's just put this on. This is basically the free version of the software. Now what we're going to do is just kind of go through some amps, and I'm willing to bet that these American Tube settings, which is, this is a Fender, you can tell just by how it looks, those will probably sound the best. We don't want to use something like Metal Clean. This is not going to sound good, right? So we'll just go through a bunch of the different clean guitar amps that they have and then find something that sounds similar. So like I mentioned, this is probably a Fender, so let's just try that one first. So American Tube Clean 1. And look at that. Fenders have their spring reverbs built into the amps, and we also have that here. So we don't even need to use like a secondary plugin at all. So that's the amp tone that we're trying to emulate. Let's hear what this does to our signal. So that's a start. So the actual amp tone has a little bit brighter sound to it, so let's add some presence. Maybe a little treble. Here we go. A little less bass. Pretty close. All right, let's add that spring reverb that we have in that amped guitar track. There it is. Here's the original. So it's a little bit like honky sounding to me. Now, we're getting a little bit of these pokey transients because this isn't a microphone, right, on a guitar cabinet. When you use a microphone on a guitar cabinet, just having air in between the speaker and the microphone acts as like a compressor. So we need to add some sort of like compression, and I find that limiting actually seems to work really, really well when you're using guitar DIs and recreating the amps out of them. It just helps keep it aggressive without sounding mushy. So I think at this point, we just need to maybe do a little bit of EQ and clean up some of that mud and add a little bit of sparkle, and we pretty much have recreated an awesome guitar tone. That's a little bit harsh, so we want to pull some of that out. And then I always like to get rid of that rumble. All right, so that's the muddiness I didn't like. Let's add a little bit of air, and I'm going to show you a trick to try to bring out a little bit more of this spring reverb without it sounding too crazy. Because, right, this guitar, actual mic guitar tone, right, we have that beautiful tail on that spring reverb. And this is really close, but it's missing a little bit of sparkle. So I'm going to use a multi-band compressor here, and this is FabFilter Pro MB. So if you like this trick, I have a link to this in the description, so you can check it out if you want to use the same idea. But I'm going to put this in expand mode. What this is going to do is that in between the loudest parts, it's going to raise the volume just in these high frequencies. So that's going to bring out a little bit of that room tone and that reverb tail to help make it sparkly like that amp was. This is kind of a cool trick, so check this out. We're going to raise up the gain or the volume of just the high frequency stuff, okay? I'm doing by like 6 dB. You can do even more, just exaggerate it. And then we're going to keep it on compression, and we want a hard knee because we want the compressor to react to the transients and lower the level back down, okay? We don't want it bright when the guitar is playing. We want it bright when the guitar is not playing. So you raise this up, quick attack as fast as we can go, and then we're going to adjust the release to swell in the brightness of that spring reverb in between the notes, okay? So let's dial this in. Okay, we have to set our range because we want to decrease the volume when we have those upstrokes. Perfect. So there's two different things we have to be really careful of: the threshold and the release. So we want the threshold to bite into the track a little bit so that it triggers the reduction in the brightness, but we also want it to swell in fast enough after that upstroke so we can't bite too deeply into that transient, okay? And then this release will help us dial in the tail and the swell of the reverb. without it. So it's a little bit bright. So let's bring this down a tiny bit. But you can hear we're not making the guitar brighter. We're just brightening the tail on that spring reverb. How cool is that? Here's the original. And if it's too bright, we can just make the band smaller and not add all this air. I mean, that sounds pretty good to me, right? We went from this to this. And we're trying to match this tone. I mean, I don't know what more you can ask for. So quick recap here. We identified that the amped guitar tone was probably like a Fender style guitar amp. So we found modeling software that had that specific amp in it. So in this case, I used Amplitube 5. We loaded up a Fender amp and just dialed it in by ear, flipping back and forth between the amped track and the guitar DI. I always add a little bit of compression or limiting afterwards because of that compression effect that happens when you have air in between a moving sound source and a microphone. And then finally, because we couldn't get the same sparkle out of the reverb tail without making the guitar too bright, I added this cool multi-band compression trick using FabFilter Pro MB, where we increase the gain feeding the guitar track, but then anytime we have these upstrokes, it pulls all that brightness away and then swells in when the guitar isn't playing, so it brings out that reverb tail. So that's an awesome guitar trick anytime you want to give your guitars a sense of space without changing the tone of it. So when you mix guitars, do you typically mix real amps and microphones, or do you use modeling software like Amplitube 5? Let me know in the comments below. And since you're already there, tell me what your favorite guitar tone is. Don't forget to grab your free guitar cabinet impulse that I made for you. Again, it's of an orange 212 cabinet with vintage 30s. This thing sounds awesome and it's totally free, so why wouldn't you go and download it? If you thought this video was helpful, be sure to share it with some people, maybe post it in a Facebook community or on Reddit. Every week, I'm going to bring you another amazing, cool, unique tip that's going to help you make better sounding music. So I hope you choose to hit that subscribe button and get notified when I drop new videos. With that, I want to thank you so much for your time and attention today, and I hope to see you in another video.